Let's review long division. Okay, in this example, we have to divide this polynomial by this polynomial. Okay, let's start by setting it up. So we draw our tens like this, and the numerator goes inside. So 2x cubed plus 7x squared plus 2x plus 9. Make sure that everything is in order. The exponents are in decreasing order, and if there's anything missing, fill it in with 0. This is in order and there's nothing missing, so we're good to go. And then the denominator goes outside. Okay, now we're ready to start. The first step is you take the very first term inside and divide it by the very first term outside. And that means we're thinking 2x cubed divided by 2x. You can do this part in your head or in a corner like this. And this, actually, the 2's cancel, and x cubed over x is x squared. So that is x squared. So now you take that and you put it over the x squared term. So 7x squared. Okay, now you multiply, distribute. So x squared times 2x would be 2x cubed. You put it with the cubes. And x squared times 3 would be 3x squared. And again, put it with the x squares. Okay, now we're going to subtract. Subtract means we're going to change the signs of everything in the second row. So that becomes a minus, and that becomes a minus. And now we add down. That is 0, and this is 4x squared. Now bring the next term down. So plus 2x. And now the process begins again. So we're going to take the very first term here, and we're going to divide by the first term there. So we're thinking then 4x squared divided by 2x. Now 4 divided by 2 is 2, and x squared divided by x is x. So we got 2x, and we put that here. Okay, and now we distribute. So that means 2x times 2x is 4x squared, and 2x times 3 is 6x. Okay, now subtract. Subtract means change the signs of the second row. So this becomes minus, that becomes a minus. Adding down, this is 0, and this one is negative 4x. Now bring the 9 down. So we're going to get negative 4x plus 9. And do the process one last time. Negative 4x, now we take this, negative 4x, and divide it by 2x. So negative 4x divided by 2x. Okay, negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, and the x is cancelled, so we just get negative 2. So we put here negative 2. And now distribute. So negative 2 times 2x is negative 4x. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. And now subtract by changing the signs and adding down. This is going to become plus and a plus. And adding down, that is 0. And adding down here, this is 15. Okay, and we're done. Now we can write down the final answer. The answer would be this top right here, x squared, that would be the quotient, and the remainder is 15, and we write it like this, plus 15 over 2x plus 3. Solving absolute value inequalities. Recall that the first step for solving absolute value inequalities is to isolate the absolute value, have it all by itself on one side of the inequality, preferably the left. So the first thing I'm going to do then here is get rid of this 4 because I want the absolute value all by itself. Any numbers that are outside of the absolute value, you need to get rid of them. Do whatever you need to do to get rid of them. In this case, I have this 4, and what we should do is just move it to the other side. And this is going to become absolute value of x minus 3, and then when you subtract 4 from both sides, this is going to become 6 on the right-hand side. Okay, so subtract 4 from both sides. And now the absolute value is all by itself. So that took only one step in this example. After that, you have to think, what type of absolute value inequality is this? Remember, there's 2 cases, and you should review how to do both cases. This is a case where the inequality becomes a sandwich type of inequality, or a double inequality, or a compound inequality. So this case is solved like this. This is equivalent to having the thing that is inside of the absolute value, which is x minus 3, sandwiched between 6 and negative 6. Okay, and now we just isolate the x in the middle. So that means get rid of this negative 3, so add 3. Remember, you have to add 3 in this case, all 3 parts. And you would get negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. And here you would get just x. And here you would get 9. So that is the answer. Okay. And now let's draw the graph of this answer. So if you draw the real line, we draw a tick mark for negative 3 and another one for 9. And this inequality says that I want all the x's that are between negative 3 and 9. All the numbers between negative 3 and 9. So that means precisely these numbers. Okay, I don't want to include the endpoints, so at the endpoints you should use parentheses. So that means the answer in interval notation would be negative 3, comma 9. Okay, now let's do this other example. First step is isolate the absolute value. Okay, so first thing is we're going to move the 3 to the other side. We're going to be left with negative absolute value 3 minus x is less than, well, we're subtracting 3 from both sides. When this 3 moves, it becomes negative 3. So we would have negative 1 minus 3. Negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. Lastly, to get rid of this negative 1, we would need to divide both sides or multiply both sides by negative 1. So this would become like this. Divide both sides by negative 1. However, when you divide by a negative number, the inequality sign flips. You cannot forget that, because we divided by a negative number. Okay, now this go away, and you end up with absolute value of 3 minus x is bigger than, this is positive 4. And now we're at the point where we have the absolute value isolated, and we have to think, okay, which type of absolute value inequality is this? And this one is the one that splits into 2. So you would get 2 cases from here. First case is what you will get if you just drop the absolute value inequalities. That's the first inequality that you get. So just look at this inequality. First one is exactly what you would get if you just drop the absolute value sign. So we would get 3 minus x is bigger than 4. Now, the other case would be what you would get when you drop the absolute value signs, but you make two changes. That changes, so you need to flip that, and the sign of that changes, so that would be negative 4. Two changes. Change that and change that. Change that to the opposite direction and change that to from positive to negative. Okay, now we just solved these two inequalities. This should not be hard. First, subtract 3, so you would get negative x bigger than 4 minus 3 is positive 1. Excuse me. 4 minus 3 is positive 1. And then divided by negative 1, this flips right here. Because we divided by a negative number, and then we will get x is less than negative 1. Okay, that is one piece. And this should be or right here. Now we just solve this absolute value this inequality. Excuse me. So subtract 3, you will get negative x. Subtracting 3, negative 4 minus 3 would be negative 7. And now divide by negative 1, just exactly like I did here. So I'm going to skip that step. We would get x is bigger than positive 7. Okay, so the answer is that or that. Now, when we draw the graph of this, let's draw the graph. Let's draw the tick marks negative 1 and 7. We want all the numbers bigger than 7. Bigger than 7, such as 8, 9, 10. Bigger than 7, those numbers are to the right of 7. So I want all of these numbers. I don't want 7, so parentheses. Remember, if it's set bigger than or equal to, then you put square bracket. This one says x less than negative 1. Less means to the left of, so I want all the numbers to the left of negative 1. And again, I would use parentheses because it doesn't say less than or equal to. If it said that, then I would use square bracket. And that's the graph of the answer. Writing the answer in interval notation, that would be from negative infinity to negative 1. So that would be that piece. Union in this piece would be from 7 to positive infinity. Okay, and that's the answer in interval notation. Let's now review the distance formula and the midpoint formula. So suppose I have these 2 points, negative 4, 10, and 6, 11. First question, find the distance between these 2 points. Okay, for that we just need to use the distance formula. You have to memorize this formula. The distance is the square root of, subtract the x's, x1 or x2 minus x1 squared plus subtract the y's, so y1 y2 minus y1 squared, so you add and then take the square root. That is the distance formula. So now this is our x1 y1 x2 y2, so I just have to plug in those numbers and simplify. This would be square root of, so let's subtract the x's, 6 minus negative 4, careful with the signs, plus 11 minus 10. And then those things are squared, added, square root. Okay, so what is this? This is 6. This becomes a plus, so this will be like 6 plus 4, that's 10. So 10 squared. And then 11 minus 10 is 1, so 1 squared. And then 10 squared is 100. 1 squared is 1, so this is the square root of 101. Okay. Now, to find the midpoint between those 2 points, we use the midpoint formula. This is another little formula that you're supposed to memorize. The formula is very easy. Just take the average of the coordinates. So take the average of the x's, that would be the x coordinate. Take the average of the y's, and that would be the y coordinate of the midpoint. Okay, so plugging in our numbers, the x's were -4 and 6, so take the average of -4 and 6. That would be -4 and 6 divided by 2. And then take the average of the y's. The y's were 10 and 11. So 10 plus 11 divided by 2. And now we're going to simplify this. So -4 plus 6 is 2 over 2. And then this is 21 over 2, which simplifies to 1 comma 21 half. Let's review how to graph lines. So this one says, consider the line with equation 9 minus 2y equals 3 minus 3x. First question, or the first step, would be find the x and the y intercepts if possible. So let's find the x and the y intercepts. Okay, we're finding the x-intercept. Remember how we do that? We just set the other variable, in this case y, equal to 0. So that means we plug in y equals 0 and find x. So if we plug in y equals 0 in this equation, what do we end up with would be 9, well that would be 0, equals 3 minus 3x. Then subtracting 3 from both sides, we would get 6 equals negative 3x. And then dividing by negative 3, we would get negative 2 equals x. Okay, I divided by negative 3, the negative 3 cancels from the right. 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. So we would get x equals negative 2. So that means the x-intercept is actually then negative 2 comma 0. That would be the x-intercept. And now let's find the y-intercept. For the y-intercept, you do exactly the same thing. But now set x equals 0. Remember, it's always the other variable. If you're looking for the y-intercept, you set the x equal to 0. If you're looking for the x-intercept, you set the y equals 0. It's always the other variable. Okay, so let's plug in x equals 0 in this equation. We would get 9 minus 2y equals 3, which, subtracting 9 from both sides, 3 minus 9 is negative 6. And lastly, dividing by negative 2, we would get that y equals negative 6 divided by negative 2 is positive 3. So that means the y-intercept is 0, 3. That's a point on the plane. Okay, so those are the intercepts. Now using these two intercepts, we can graph the equation for the line. Okay, let's draw our axis here. We just want to plot these 2 points and connect to them, and that's it. That would be the graph for a line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the first point is negative 2, 0. Negative 2, 0 will be right here. And then the other point would be 0, 3 right here. Now we just connect to these 2 lines, these 2 points, and that would be our line. Okay, I don't have a straight edge, but just connect them. That's your line. We're now going to review how to draw the equation of a line using the slope-intercept method. Okay, so consider this line with equation 2y plus 3x plus 6 equals 0. Let's first find the slope and the y-intercept. For finding the slope and y-intercept, basically put the equation in the slope-intercept form, which means solve for y. So that is going to be our first step. So from this equation, move both of these to the other side. So we're going to get 2y equals, moving that, the 3x to the other side, this is going to become negative 3x. Moving the 6 to the other side is going to become negative, or minus 6. Let's write minus 6. Okay. Now, finally, to get the y all by itself, divide by 2. Everything gets divided by 2, so the negative 3 gets divided by 2, and then the 6 gets divided by 2, so you would get negative 3. So that is the equation in slope-intercept form. From here, we can read off both the slope and the intercept. So the slope would be what is in front of the x. So the slope equals negative 3/2. And the y-intercept would be negative 3, but that would be actually the y-coordinate of the y-intercept. So the y-intercept as a pair would be actually, as a point on the plane, would be actually 0, negative 3. So the negative 3 is the y-coordinate of the y-intercept. Slope and y-intercept. Okay, now using this information, the information from part A, we're going to graph the line. Okay, so let's take a moment to draw the axis. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we start by plotting the y-intercept, which is 0, negative 3, so we would be right here. We might need to draw this a little bit longer. Okay, so we have the y-intercept right there. Then we have that the slope equals -3/2. However, one interpretation of the slope is rise over run, right? So that means if you are on any point on the line, you can go to another point by following these instructions. Rise, in this case, -3 and run +2. So from this point, right here, we're going to rise -3. So that means actually go down. So 1, 2, 3. And then run 2 over. So because it's positive, that means to the right. So 1, 2. So that would be right here. Okay, so now we connect those 2 points and we have our line.